You are warm right now. You may not even notice it, but you are. Somewhere in your home there is a number set on a wall, and if the air ever drops below it, a machine switches on and solves the problem before your body has time to complain. You move from a heated house to a heated car to a heated building, and the coldest moment of your entire day is probably the 10 seconds spent crossing between them. Winter for you is a nuisance. It is scraping frost off a windshield. It is putting on a heavier coat. It is grumbling that the sun sets too soon. For almost the entire span of human existence, winter was not a nuisance. Winter was the season actively trying to end you, and it never came at you with just one weapon. It attacked from 4 directions simultaneously. The cold could kill you. The hunger could kill you. The predators could kill you. And the long, black, endless nights could break your mind before any of the others finished the job. So here is the question. For hundreds of thousands of years, with no furnace, no grocery store, no wall that actually stopped the wind, how did human beings survive winter at all? Because they did. Your ancestors marched directly into some of the harshest environments this planet has ever produced, and they came out the other side. How they managed it is one of the most remarkable achievements our species has to its name. Start with the obvious threat, the cold itself. Here is something most people never stop to consider. A human being is fundamentally a tropical creature. Our bodies took shape in the warm regions of Africa, and left unprotected, a bare human body loses heat rapidly. In cold air, hypothermia can set in within a few hours. Your fingers lose function. Your thoughts slow down. And once your core temperature drops far enough, your body simply shuts off. No claws. No thick pelt. No meaningful natural insulation. On paper, we are among the worst equipped large mammals on Earth for enduring a serious winter. And yet humans did not merely survive the cold, they marched straight into it. They pushed north into Ice Age Europe, into Siberia, into places where winter temperatures dropped far past anything an unprotected human body can tolerate. How? The first answer is fire, and we will return to what fire did for the long winter nights shortly. But fire has a flaw. It only heats the side of you facing it. It does not travel with you. The instant you step away from the flames to hunt or gather firewood, the cold rushes straight back in. Fire alone was never going to be enough. What ancient humans actually needed was a way to carry warmth on their bodies, wrapped around them everywhere they went. And that leads to what might be the single most important winter invention humans ever produced: clothing. Not the version you're probably picturing. For a long time, the assumption ran simple: it's cold, so drape an animal hide over your shoulders and call it done. And for a stretch of time, that is precisely what humans did. But a draped hide leaves gaps everywhere. Wind slips in at the sides. Arms stay exposed. It shifts and falls with every movement. A loose skin beats nothing at all, but in a genuine winter, beating nothing at all still gets you killed. The breakthrough was learning to cut hides into pieces and stitch them back together into shapes built around the human body. Fitted sleeves. Sealed sides. A garment that trapped a pocket of warm air against the skin and held it there through movement. That is the entire difference between a blanket and a coat. But to pull this off, you need a needle. Not just any needle, one with an eye, a tiny opening to thread. This is a genuinely difficult object to produce. You take a sliver of bone, grind it down to a fine point, then drill a hole through it small enough to be delicate but strong enough to survive use. Archaeologists have recovered bone needles like this dating back more than 40,000 years, and at some sites, even older. These are precise, deliberate tools. Whoever crafted them understood exactly what they were building. The thread itself also came from animals. Sinew, the tough connective fiber linking muscle to bone, could be stripped, dried, and used to stitch hides into something that actually held together. Layer a garment like that, fur turned inward against the skin, and suddenly a human being could stand in air cold enough to kill and remain alive inside a personal pocket of warmth. Sewn clothing was not comfort. It was the piece of technology that let our species leave the warm world it evolved in and walk into the coldest parts of the planet. Without the needle and thread, there is no human presence in Ice Age Siberia. So now you're warm or warm enough. You can move, work, hunt. But the sun is dropping, the temperature is falling further, and you face a second problem clothing cannot solve. You need somewhere to survive the night. The obvious answer is a cave, and caves genuinely mattered. A deep cave holds a stable temperature, blocks the wind, keeps the snow at bay. But here is the part nobody mentions about caves: there are not many of them. A good, dry, defensible cave in the right location was rare. And if you found one, you were rarely the only group who wanted it. You could not depend on a cave. Most of the time, if you needed somewhere to survive winter, you had to build it yourself. This is where things get remarkable. At a site called Mezhiriv, in what is now Ukraine, archaeologists uncovered the remains of shelters built roughly 15,000 years ago. There was almost no wood on that landscape, and almost no stone. So the people there built homes from the one material available in enormous supply, mammoth bones. They stacked and interlocked the bones of dozens of mammoths into round, dome-shaped huts. Hundreds of bones per dwelling. Jawbones layered like roof tiles. Massive tusks arching over the entrances. These were not quick, disposable shelters. They were substantial, engineered structures, designed to endure a brutal winter, requiring genuine planning and labor to assemble. Inside a shelter like that, every effort went toward trapping the warmth. At a site in South Africa, archaeologists uncovered evidence of bedding built from layered grasses and leaves, carefully arranged, dating back an astonishing 77,000 years. People were making their shelters comfortable before our species had even left Africa. And it didn't end at the floor, because consider that mammoth bone hut again. Built from bones, and bones do not fit together seamlessly. Gaps exist everywhere, and every gap is an entry point for wind. So they sealed them, layer by layer. They stretched animal hides across the inner walls and pinned them over the gaps. They cut blocks of sod and stacked them against the exterior. Some groups even packed snow against their shelters, because a thick layer of snow is an excellent insulator, it traps air, and trapped air holds heat. Layer by layer, the wind ran out of paths inside. A shelter stopped being just walls. It became a system. And that system kept people alive through nights that should have finished them. But a warm shelter creates a new problem, and it's a significant one. Keeping a fire burning through an entire winter requires fuel, a lot of it. Gathering fuel means someone has to keep stepping back out into the cold, over and over, all winter long. You are anchored to that shelter. You cannot simply wander, which means your food supply has to either sit nearby or already be stored. Which brings us to the third threat, arguably the one that killed the most people of all. Hunger. Here is the part of winter that modern life has erased entirely from memory. In winter, the world stops producing food. Plants die back or go dormant. The berries vanish. Roots become harder to locate and harder to dig from frozen ground. Many animals migrate away, or hide, or grow lean and desperate themselves. For a hunter-gatherer, winter isn't only cold, it's a season when the land itself stops feeding you. And that turns survival into arithmetic. You must gather enough during the warm months to carry a group through months when almost nothing new arrives. So ancient humans became experts at storage, using a handful of brilliant methods. The first was drying. Slice meat thin, let it dry in the sun or over low smoke, and you pull the moisture out, and without moisture, it cannot rot. Dried meat could last for months. The smoke did double duty, layering additional preservation on top of the drying process. A rack of drying meat in autumn was, in every real sense, a group's insurance policy against starvation in February. The second method turned the cold itself into a tool. Frozen ground functioned as a natural freezer. Dig a pit into the permafrost, pack it with meat from a large kill, and the cold preserved it for an extended stretch of time. Winter, the very force trying to starve you, became the thing keeping your food edible. But the single most valuable food in winter was not meat exactly. It was fat. When you are burning enormous energy simply to stay warm, lean meat alone isn't sufficient. Fat is the most concentrated energy source available, and deep in winter it was worth more than nearly anything else. Ancient humans rendered animal fat into tallow, a stable, storable, energy-dense fuel for the human body. They combined dried meat with fat to create a dense, long-lasting food packing enormous calories into a small, portable form. In a season where every calorie mattered, fat was the line between a group that reached spring and one that did not. So now you're warm, sheltered, and stocked with stored food. You've defeated 3 of winter's 4 death sentences. But there's a fourth, and it's the one people almost never consider because it doesn't attack the body. It attacks the mind. The darkness. In winter, especially the farther north you travel, the days shrink and the nights stretch brutally long. You might get only a handful of usable daylight hours, followed by 15 or 16 hours of cold darkness with nothing to occupy you but waiting. You cannot travel far. You cannot hunt effectively in the dark. You are confined to a small space with the same handful of people, night after night after night. That kind of confinement, that endless waiting, can wear a person down in a way cold and hunger never manage on their own. But here is what ancient humans did with those long dark hours. They did not simply endure them. They filled them. This was the time for every task that didn't require daylight or good weather, sitting by the fire, repairing tools, shaping new spear points, sewing and mending clothing for the remainder of winter, twisting plant fiber into cordage, carving. The long night was not wasted time. It was workshop time, the hours a group spent preparing everything it would need the instant the weather broke. And it was more than labor. Around that winter fire, in the dark, is where people talked, where the older members of the group passed everything they knew down to the younger ones, where stories got told, the same stories repeated again and again, carrying the group's memory and knowledge forward across generations. A substantial portion of what we now think of as human culture, the myths, the songs, the shared knowledge, was forged under exactly these conditions. People pressed together against the dark, keeping each other warm, keeping each other sane, keeping each other human until the light returned. Winter didn't only test the body. In a strange way, it built the mind. Step back and look at all of it together, and something striking comes into focus. Winter didn't just get survived. Winter shaped us. Consider it, the pressure of the cold is what pushed humans to invent fitted clothing. The scarcity of caves is what pushed them to invent real architecture. The seasonal food gap is what pushed them to invent storage and preservation. And the long dark nights account for a substantial share of where human culture itself was made. Nearly every technology that allowed our species to spread across the entire planet, into every climate on Earth, was forged in the effort to survive the cold. The harshest season did not fail to kill us. It made us considerably more capable than we had any right to be. So here is the complete picture. Winter attacked your ancestors with 4 weapons. The cold answered with fire and sewn, fitted clothing. The night answered by building shelters from whatever the land provided, even the bones of mammoths. The hunger answered by drying, freezing, and rendering food into stores that could carry a group across months. And the darkness answered by turning the longest, coldest nights into the workshop and the classroom where human culture was born. Every single winter was a test that a substantial number of people failed. Survival was never guaranteed. It was earned every year, through preparation and skill and sheer stubbornness. And now, look at you. You turn a dial and the room warms. You open a door and there is food grown on the opposite side of the planet, sitting in your kitchen in the middle of December. You complain that the sun sets too early, from inside a house your ancestors could not have imagined, having never once in your life felt the specific fear of watching the first snowfall and wondering whether you had stored enough to see the spring. You don't survive winter anymore. You barely notice it. And that isn't because winter grew any weaker. It's because 100,000 years of human beings freezing, and starving, and huddling together in the dark slowly figured out how to beat it one invention at a time so that you would never have to.